That's History. I'm Janet Comer.
And I'm Ashley Glaze. So today, I'm here to talk about the absolute monarchs. In fact, the top 10 absolute monarchs around Europe.
So what is an absolute monarch?
Well, an absolute monarch came from this theory of the divine right of kings, that God communicates to the king what he wants him to do, and the king communicates back to God. And since no one can actually listen in on that conversation, then the king gets to pretty much do what he wants to do.
Oh, so nobody can question the king because he can always say, well, God told me to do that.
Exactly.
I see.
And so all of these noblemen out here who think that they have power, their power is about to decrease to that much. So, number 1 is actually Philip II. He's going to rule over Spain, and his nickname is Philip the Prudent.
He was prude? What was he prude about?
Well, he wasn't necessarily a prude, but you know those people who are kind of reserved and stand back, and they kind of seem standoffish, but they're actually just shy?
Oh, so they stand back, they watch, and they listen, and they hear everything. They're the kind of the dangerous ones because they know everything that's going on.
Right. And a quote by his historian that he would have writing for him was actually, he would always have his smile and his dagger close by.
Ooh, that does sound dangerous.
Yes, he was always very suspicious of others, and he would not open up. He would watch and observe before he did anything.
It's always the quiet ones you have to worry about.
It is, isn't it? In fact, speaking of, he was actually married to Bloody Mary.
Oh, King Henry VIII's oldest daughter.
Yes.
I remember her.
The one who went and killed all the Protestants.
Bloody Mary.
Bloody Mary.
Oh.
So, anyway, he was married to her. She's going to pass away, and he is going to be very diligent in his religion because, like Bloody Mary, he was very diligent in his Catholicism, and he was very religious. And so he would actually try to go to these other places to reestablish Catholicism, the Ottoman Empire, Muslims. In fact, he's going to send the Spanish Armada over into England when Elizabeth takes the throne to try and bring her back and her country back over to Catholicism.
Now, Elizabeth, is that King Henry VIII's second child?
Yes, we're going to talk about her in a minute.
Okay, sorry.
But he goes in with his Spanish Armada thinking he's going to actually do a great job for 2 reasons.
Okay.
First reason, do you know what it is?
Well, he was very Catholic, so I think that he probably thought that God was going to be on his side and be with him and his people and take over the Protestant nation.
Right. It links back to the divine right of kings. Second is because she was a female. And so and she was just coming into the throne. He was like, this is my chance. Well, what he knows going into it would tell him that on the practical side, that's not the case. Because England has more weapons, better weapons. In fact, they could shoot up to 10 bullets to Spain's 1.
Wow.
So they are obliterated.
Mm-hmm.
He comes back home with just a few, and just to kind of rub salt into the wound, a storm hits. And so he barely gets 1 or 2 ships back home. Number 2 is Elizabeth I. She, like we mentioned in our last one, is the sister to Bloody Mary. She takes the throne after Bloody Mary's death, and she is going to be known as the Virgin Queen.
So I'm guessing that she never got married?
She never gets married.
Wow.
Now, it is rumored that she had a love affair with Robert Dudley, but nothing ever substantial came out of it, and you know how rumors can be.
Yes, yes.
Well, she is going to be an absolute monarch because she puts into place the Act of Supremacy, making her the supreme leader of the church and the government.
Same thing that her dad did when he passed the Act of Supremacy.
Right, except
Okay.
she's establishing it for herself.
Okay, okay.
And she's very religiously tolerant. And so she doesn't make people choose or anything like that. In fact, so much so that Pope Pius V is going to excommunicate her.
Well,
Even
I
though
guess that's a big deal since she's not Catholic.
Exactly.
That's kind of
But
strange.
big enough for him to excommunicate her.
Okay. I guess it just, his little say.
Right.
Okay.
And her heir is going to become known as the Elizabethan heir. She's going to rule for 44 years.
Is that why you can go into the stores and buy the Elizabethan furniture?
Yes.
Oh, it's so beautiful.
Number 3 is Oliver Cromwell. Now, after Elizabeth passes away, Charles I is going to take the throne, but he's not very good. And so it's going to come down to a battle between the Parliament versus royalty. And so our two groups are going to be known as the Royalists and the Roundheads. They were called Roundheads because of their crazy wigs. Oliver Cromwell, he was in Parliament, and he is going to promote his side, of course, and the Parliament's going to support him. He's going to win in this English Civil War, and the first thing he does is get rid of Parliament. It's also going to be the first time that we're going to have a king stand trial and be executed publicly.
Because I guess usually they just put him away in prison or something like that.
Keep it a
and
secret,
Mm-hmm.
Or they mysteriously disappear.
That's true. So this guy's going to be on display for everyone to see then.
Right, and his execution.
Oh.
It sends a shock through
It
the
probably
press.
scares everybody, don't you guys?
Yes. And he sets himself up as a military dictator.
Mm-hmm.
He originally says, oh yeah, I'm going to be a republic, a type of commonwealth. But he doesn't. Because you see, he's also a Puritan. And so he's going to have Puritan morals put into place in England. And it's going to include no theater, no sporting events, and no dancing.
And this is coming after the time of William Shakespeare, right?
Right.
So people were kind of used to going to the theater and seeing things.
Yes, sucking the soul out of England.
Wow.
So
He's not a fun guy at all.
he's not, but he is going to eventually pass away as well, which leads us to our next person. Number 4 is
Okay.
Charles II. When Oliver Cromwell dies from malaria,
Okay.
Charles II is going to come back in on the throne, and he's going to become known as a likable, witty kind of guy. He just has one little hiccup.
He likes to have fun.
He's a player.
Oh, okay.
He is a player.
There's a
In
lot
fact,
of women then, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And according to different resources, you get different answers, but he at least had 15 illegitimate children.
That is a lot.
That is a lot.
When did he even have time to rule?
Excellent question. He liked to have parties and he liked to have fun. In fact, he says he always liked virtue, but he was never very good at imitating it. That's a direct quote from him.
That's interesting. So he did like it, though.
He did
I
like
bet he sought it out in his subjects and things.
Yes,
They had a different standard than he did.
very much so.
Interesting.
Very much so. On his deathbed,
Mm-hmm.
he switched to Catholicism. Isn't that strange?
You mean he was Protestant up until then, and he waited until he was on his deathbed to swap over?
Yes.
So makes you wonder if maybe he felt like he wasn't saved before and he needed to be Catholic to be saved.
Possibly. I think it's interesting to do right there on your deathbed.
Mm-hmm.
One of the random facts I learned about him, though, was that while he was at war with Holland, over Christmas he had to eat roasted poodle.
Ooh,
Is that not gross?
that sounds gross.
That poor poodle. Number 5. Speaking of party kings, we're going to move over to France. We're going to talk about Louis XIV.
He is my favorite king.
Well, do you know what his nickname is?
Well, let's see. He was the Sun King.
Yes, because sun gives life to all beings, and Louis XIV therefore gives life to all of his subjects. Can we say all about self right there?
Narcissism?
Yes. He's actually going to take over at the age of 4. He's actually going to rule for 72 years, 3 months, and 18 days, technically.
He lived a long time then.
He did. Now, he doesn't actually start his rule until he's 22.
Mm-hmm.
And he is going to be the party king, the sun king, because what he does to distract his nobles and to make them weaker is he literally says, come on and live with me at this place called Versailles. And he's going to have parties all the time. In fact, when he dies, they're going to discover that he has the stomach of twice the size of a normal person.
Oh, so that means that he threw a lot of parties and he ate.
He ate a lot.
Now, what I remember about him is his outfits. He was very flamboyant. He had the wigs, he had the heels, he had just the whole outfit. My favorite were the tights that he would wear.
Yes.
Very flamboyant. I guess that goes with his whole party style attitude.
Well, it did, but it also had to do with his height. He was 5'4".
Oh.
And so he would wear these heels and these really tall wigs to increase his height.
I didn't know that.
Number 6 is Maria Theresa. She's actually going to become the Holy Roman Empress. And her dad and her had a unique situation.
Mm-hmm.
Her dad was advised to make her marry for power. It would have increased
Right.
his standing. And he refused, despite his closest advisors telling him, you need to do this. This is better for your country. He's actually going to let Maria Theresa marry for love.
I wonder how rare that really was.
I think it's pretty rare, considering. She's actually going to have 3 beautiful daughters. She becomes known as being a great mother figure, as well as expanding her territory. And one of those daughters is going to be Marie Antoinette.
Which we will talk about later, won't we?
Yeah. Number 7 is Ivan IV.
Well, there's some interesting stories about this guy, isn't there?
Yes, he was known for having a horrid temper. In fact, he is going to establish his own police force to go out and kill people who he thought were traitors. And so he's going to end up with this nickname called Ivan the Terrible. He is actually going to do a lot for Russia. He's going to strengthen the government and build up their economy. But because of his temper, some things are going to happen that's, I guess you could say, is beyond his control if you believe that you can't control your temper. So, for example, he's going to have an oldest son, and this oldest son gets married. His wife is expecting a baby. He hits his wife repeatedly to the point where she miscarries. His son comes in, finds out, and goes to his father in a temper. Well, the father has a temper himself, gets into a fight with his son, and stabs him with his staff, killing his oldest son and best option for ruling Russia. And Russia will pay the price for that decision. Some people think that it could possibly be because of the death of his wife, Anastasia Romanov. Now, this isn't the Anastasia Romanov, but it is how we end up with the Romanov line starting in Russia because of his decision to end up killing his son.
So he really had kind of killed off the heir to the throne then, right?
Pretty much. He's going to have a second son, but he's weak, and he will die pretty quickly.
Okay.
Anyway, another story about his personality was he actually has built the St. Basil's Cathedral. And he thinks it's so grand and wonderful, and this is just a rumor. But he thinks it's so grand and wonderful, he doesn't want another one built like it, so it's rumored that he blinded his architect so he couldn't build another.
That would be really terrible to do.
Wouldn't it?
I guess that's why they call him Ivan the Terrible.
I guess so. Number 8 is Peter the Great.
So what made him so great?
Well, it's a bit of a switch from Ivan the Terrible, that's for sure. First off, I got to tell you the fun stuff.
Okay.
Well, he was 6'8".
Wow.
Massive. And
Can
actually,
you imagine talking to a 6'8" person?
no, I can't. I'm only 5'4". Our book calls him, it says that he had the mind of a genius, the body of a giant, and a ferocious temper of a bear.
Oh, he was probably a scary dude then.
Yes. And one of the rumors was actually, well, not rumors, this was established as fact,
Okay.
that he could take a silver plate, roll it up with his bare hands, and when you annoyed him, he would just knock you over the head.
Oh, I guess you would pass out then. You'd fall down
Yes,
and be
you would.
unconscious.
So he wasn't actually a murderer like Ivan the Terrible, but at the same time, he was a very no-nonsense kind of person.
But he could take you out like that with probably his little fingers.
Yeah, I think so. He was massive.
Scary.
Yes. However, he is also going to be a great ruler as far as the absolute monarch is concerned. He is going to travel through Western Europe in disguise, like he dresses in plain clothing to keep his identity a secret, and he is going to get all of these ideas about how to make Russia better.
Okay.
And he comes back and he says, look, I could give them the option, but the people aren't going to do it unless I force them to. So he forces them to make some changes that actually benefits Russia.
Okay, like what kind of changes?
Well, first he's going to bring the Russian Orthodox Church under state control.
Okay.
He's going to bring in potatoes into Russia, which becomes a staple crop for Russia. He's going to produce the first newspaper and edit it himself. He's going to actually increase women's stature in society by allowing them to participate in social gatherings.
Now, excuse me, I had heard too that he made men shave their beards.
Yes,
and
he's going
dress more modern.
Yes, he's going to say our traditional clothes out, Western clothes in. And he didn't do this to get rid of their culture. He does it to make Russia stronger.
And Russia needed to be made stronger.
Yes, especially after Ivan. Number 9 is Frederick the Great. He's going to be a different kind of ruler. In fact, His father is a little bit concerned about him. He had a great love for poetry and music and philosophy. And so when he was a young kid, he had a best friend, and him and this best friend got the crazy idea they were going to run away.
Oh, this doesn't sound like it's going to end well.
It doesn't end well. In fact, it would personally take me years of therapy. What happens is that they run away, they are caught being running away, and his father forces him to watch the execution of his best friend. It's traumatic.
I would need therapy too.
I would. If it was my best friend, you're going to make me watch.
Especially if I've talked my best friend into running away with me.
Exactly. And so the guilt that would be established there. Anyway, he's going to grow up, take over the throne, and he's going to keep in place his father's military decisions, but he is going to offer religious tolerance. He's actually atheist himself, and he's known as a very practical kind of person. In fact, one of his quotes is that he felt like a king should be a father to his country. And so he does take the lessons that he learned and tries to implement them and make Russia a better place. Last but not least is number 10, with Catherine the Great. And Catherine the Great, I left her for last because she's a bit scandalous.
Okay.
I mean, we've talked about the other women and how they were the Virgin Queen and the great mother figure. Well, Catherine the Great, she was known for having many lovers, basically.
Okay. She was the player.
She was the player.
Okay.
And she got married, and she didn't have a child the first 8 years of marriage. And when she did have her first child, everybody realized that it was not the king who fathered that child. In fact, none of her children were fathered by her husband. And she helps establish the coup to overthrow her husband so that she can be the leader of Russia.
Can we say narcissism here as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Very much so. In fact, she was trained to take over the throne. Everything about her was very political and how to gain power. And she wields that thoroughly. Now, the people also, because of her reputation of having many lovers, create wild, crazy rumors about her. Unfortunately,
I guess I didn't like her, maybe?
they did not like her.
Okay.
And unfortunately, when she dies, they're going to create even crazier rumors. But the truth is that she just died of a stroke and ends up dying in her bedroom. That completes our top 10 absolute monarchs. If you would like to hear about others, you can see us in class.